Hi, my name is Chung. Welcome to Volume 5, Perfect Self-Defense Series of my instructional video library. In this Part 1, Perfect Basic Self-Defense, you will be learning how to prepare ready stance in a self-defense situation. I will also be taking you through defense against front and rear chokes. You will also be learning wrist grabs, wrist locks, and of course, arm locks. And finally, I will be taking you through the basic principles of self-defense and using the concept of best defense is quick offense, using the strikes with both hands and feet. So put your uniform on and let's get started. You're now ready to start Part 1, the perfect basic self-defense. To make things perfect, keep things simple. First, let's talk about your balance. One of the most important things in self-defense is being aware as well as being alert. In order for you to do that, you must be in perfect balance. So stand first at about shoulder width, or maybe a little bit narrower, where you're comfortable and still have the stability. Let's start with punching technique. First, just open your hands and just form a nice roll with your fingers, as if you're rolling or grabbing something in your hands. And place the thumb on the bottom of the first two fingers. And if you turn your hands over, you will see that your first two knuckles are the biggest two. And that is the striking area of any of the punching or fist techniques. Now, keeping that in mind, from at ease or relaxed position, just bring your right hand straight up. Now, you maybe bring your right hand. Remember, I'm doing a mirror image from you. Just bring it by your side, and from there, punch it straight out. And at last second, turn the hand over. Now let's try that with the other hand. Again, make a fist as you bring your hand up so you don't waste any time. Bring it up and keep the palm facing up. Punch out and turn your hand over at last second. And let's try that again with the other side. Hands up. Remember, palms facing up. Punch and twist at last second. With the other hand. Hands up. Punch and twist at last second. Once again, you want to strike with that first two knuckles because that is biggest two. Also, same time, it keeps in straight line with your wrist, your arm, all the way back to your shoulder and your body, where you'll be getting full support. So you must keep your wrist straight. Don't bend your wrist when you punch. Keep your wrist nice and straight, striking with that first two knuckle once again. Okay, let's try that fast. Bring your hand up, punch. Bring it back, and relax. I would like for you to bring your hand back just in case you need to punch again. Other hand, bring your hands up, punch and twist. Bring it back, and relax. And if you notice, we're traveling in a perfect straight line. Your hand comes straight up, and your hand goes straight out. Fastest way to travel is a straight line. So you know you will get there the fastest. One more time. Up, punch. Back and down. The other hand, up, punch. Back and down. Now let's try that one motion. As soon as the hand comes up, punch out, bring it right back, all the way back to at ease position. Ready? With me. Punch. Back and down. Punch. Back and down. One more time. Punch. Back and down. Punch. Back and down. And that's how you will practice basic punching technique. Now you're ready to continue on with practicing punching with balance, or in this case we call it a stance, horseback riding stance. We'll continue on and applying this horse stance to a rear choke. Assisting me is Mr. Youngun Park. So first, let's bow. And let's get into that comfortable, natural, at ease position. Okay? From here, remember, you can always punch and defend yourself. Now, to develop our quads and your glutes, your hip and thigh muscles, we're going to get into a horseback riding stance, known as kima sogi, which is about twice as wide as your shoulders. So let's get into the stance, about twice as wide as your shoulders. Now, if you're a little bit tight on the hips, have your stance a little bit narrower, but push the knees out and work on the hip and the thigh muscles. And of course, make sure your knees are not buckling in, where it's very unstable. You want to make sure you have the weight evenly distributed, so this way you can move to left or right side. This is called kima sogi, horseback riding stance. Now, once you're settled in a comfortable position, bring both hands by your rib cage, and now we're ready to work on that punch. Just from there, punching out with the right hand. Remember, my right and your right. So we'll be punching across from each other. Just punch out and twist at last second. And bring it back. With the other hand, punch out, twist, and at last second, and bring it right back. Okay, are you ready? Right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. And relax. Now, you should have felt a little bit of a burning on your thigh, your hips. That's strengthening part. And that'll help you balance great deal. Now, if you noticed, when we're punching, you brought your hand back to your side or your rib cage. And looking at it from the side view, opposite of a punch, when you bring it back, is also elbow strike. So when you're practicing that punch, also practice that elbow strike, just in case someone is behind you. Now let's see this in action. Assisting me again, Mr. Youngun Park. He's behind me and choking with his arm. He may be coming from either left or right side. Now when it comes to choke, I can step either left or right. I can't step front because you notice his arm is in the way. I can't step back because his body's there. So I have to go either left or right. It's like a big bus or a freight train coming straight towards you. Well, you better get out of there quick. And that's where the side step comes in. I can step to the left side or right side. Now, since he's coming with his right arm, I'm going to step into his arm and assume that horse stance. Now, you notice when I got into the stance, I kind of pulled him in and threw him off balance. Right away, to avoid his choke, I turn my head and look at him. That takes my throat away from his line of choke. And I can do that opposite of a punch, elbow strike, to defend myself. Now, let's see that one more time, but this time to the other side. He comes in choke from the left side. Remember, I can't go forward, nor can I go back, so I must step to the side. I pull him in and look. And again, you notice where my throat is, to the side. And same time, I can see whether he's my friend or a foe. Well, you can defend with the elbow strike to protect yourself. Now you can do this drill with your partner by looking at the front and let your opponent alternate their arm, left side or right or left. And you have to be able to defend. Remember, do not predict or do not underestimate your opponent. So when you're practicing self-defense situation, relax, breathe, and always go by feel. Let's try it a couple times with Mr. Park attacking at me from the rear choke. Right side, so I step to the right, look, and you notice my arms are out, elbow strike. Let's see which side he's going to come from. Is he going to come from the right? Oh, he's coming from the left this time. Again, I step in, and you notice I have nice balance. Look, elbow strike. Now, as you continue on with the self-defense situation, if you are a little more advanced, you can turn your palm down, where your knuckles are facing up. And you can continue on and follow with what we call a back fist strike. Back fist strike goes to the eyebrows, cheekbone, nose, and even to the jaw. So after the elbow strike, back fist strike. And you can even finish them off by turning your hand sideways, hitting with the edge of your fist, called hammer fist strike, as if you're holding onto a hammer, straight down toward his groin. These are basic self-defense against a rear choke using elbow strikes and horseback riding stance known as Kima Sogi. Let's continue on and talk about ready stance. Earlier, we talked about ready stance being about wide as your shoulder, where you're comfortable and stable. However, your body, your face, all of your vulnerable target area is wide open, exposed to your opponent. So to minimize this target area, you would turn your body sideways. So if you're ever in a confrontation situation, you want to turn your body sideways by stepping back. So this way you create more space between you and your opponent, which will also give you more time to prepare. By turning your body sideways, you take your vital area, throat, solar plexus, groin area, slightly to the side. And you also have stability, where you can lean forward to attack or lean back to defend if you need to. Just try that. Your body sideways. Now make sure when you step back to turn your body sideways, please do not crisscross your legs. Now we call this negative stance. Draw an imaginary line. You want to have the front foot on one side of the line and the back foot on the other side of the line. So you have a clear path with that back leg, just in case you need to knee strike or even follow with a kicking technique. Now once you're in this position, you want your front foot pointing slightly forward, so just in case you need to attack and move forward. Your back foot is slightly sideways, so this way it gives you a little more stability. So practice that a few times. You ready? Moving your front foot, keeping your body sideways, slide up. Moving your back foot, keeping your body sideways, move back. Now think of the concept of, if you're in the front when you're racing, you probably have better chance of winning. So when we go forward, we want to use that front leg because it's closer to your opponent, therefore more likely it'll be faster. So remember, front foot, back foot. Now of course, side steps. If I'm going to the left, I move my left foot first. If I'm going to the right, I move my right foot first. So this way, I do not crisscross my leg. For example, if I'm going to my left and I have my right leg, you notice I'm in a crisscross or unstable position. And of course, same thing, if I want to go to the right and I have my left leg, I'm also in a crisscross position. So by practicing these basic steps, front foot going forward, back foot going back, left foot moving to the left, right foot moving to the right, you'll be able to be mobile in a self-defense situation. Now you're ready for the hands. When you're in a self-defense situation, if you have a barrier between you and your opponent, you're safer. That's why we put our guards up. Your opponent must get through these guards before they can get to you. However, you don't want to offend them, nor do you want to let them know that you're ready for confrontation. And usually when you have your fists all balled up, that signifies you're ready for confrontation. Opening your hand, we call it soft or gentle way. It keeps them away and also keeps them thinking that you're not prepared. Let's take your back hand, put it against your body to protect, and take your front hand, just put it right under your chin. I call this a thinking stance. I'm sure you've done this before at a museum or even park, just looking, checking things out. You kind of think and wonder. Well, this is a perfect defensive situation because you have your guards up, your hands are open, so it's ready to block, grab, strike if you need to. So this is a very comfortable defending position. Now from here, let's go through some of the blocks. Just block out, come back, block in, come back. Now if you notice, as I block, I'm using my wrist action. So when you block out to your backside, turn your wrist out. That'll give you a little more snap. When you're blocking in, turn your wrist in. That'll also give you more snap. Let's try that a couple times. Just put your hand in the front, block out, block in. One more time, block out, block in. Just move your hands back and forth like a windshield wiper in the car. That's your outer and inner block. Now from there, let's go into the low block. In a sweeping action, circular motion where you're blocking your chest and lower part of your body. Imagine there's a big piece of dirt on your pants, and you know how you wipe your pants? Well, just like that. It could be a big foot or even a punch. So just drop your hand in a circular motion as if you're deflecting the technique. And then lastly, high or upper block, where your arm comes straight up above your face, above your head, and your palm turns out, using a wrist action again. And your arm should be at a slight slant, so this way, anything comes, it'll be able to deflect off. So that's your ready stance. Now, you can even have your hands up to prepare, and of course, with the backhand, you have it up for extra safety, which you can also block down, as well as block out. So from the thinking stance, just bring your hands out and make a fist. You have ready stance. Now you're ready for application of the ready stance with some of the striking techniques. Of course, we'll be applying some of these techniques with the blocks and strikes. Assisting me again is Mr. Youngun Park. 차려, 경례. Now, I will be having my right side forward, and Mr. Park will have his left side forward. So remember to step back first. And put your guards up. Remember, you want the front hand between you and your opponent. Not off the inside, nor do you want it outside where your body's open. So line it up about your chin level. Keep your elbows down, and backhand comes up just slightly by your chest. Let's go over those 4 blocks one more time. Block out, block in, block down, and block up, and come back. Now with the backhand, block down, and block out. Now when you're blocking out, don't block out too far. There's nothing there, so don't reach for it. Let them come to you. Remember, longer it takes for them to come to you, more time you have to defend. Okay, let's go back to the punching technique. Take your front hand, punch straight out, twist that last second, come back. That's called front punch. One more time, a little faster, punch and twist, So there will be a front punch. Now the backhand. Your backhand goes straight out. Now keep that front hand right there. That's your protection. Take your backhand, punch straight out. And if you notice, my back foot is turning, and of course, twist the punch at last second. You want to twist that back foot so this way you can get more power with your hip and your body, and of course with twisting you also get more reach. Now let's try that one more time. We call that a back punch. Just twist your hip and your body, keeping your guard up, punch, and twist at last second, and of course come right back. Now in an actual self-defense situation, you can use that same hip action, especially if your opponent is close. Just by raising your elbow, you can do elbow strike. Let's try that. Just pick up your back elbow up, turn your back hip, elbow strike. And remember, that goes to the temple, eyebrows, nose, cheekbone, even to the jaw. One more time. Lift up the back elbow, turn, and strike. And then come back. You can use that same hip action by using the backhand. Open your palms. Curl your wrist backward. Using the heel part of your palm. You have what we call a palm heel strike. So you have back punch. Come back. Same hip action. Back elbow strike. Come back. And of course, back palm heel strike, which goes to the bridge of the nose or even to your opponent's chin. All of this strike can be used, of course, with the front hand as well. And of course, additional technique, we call it a back fist or back knuckle strike, which you saw earlier, which comes in a circular motion and it comes sideways. Let's try that. Just bring your hands in and out. And remember, it's going in a circular motion, not like a straight punch. Ready? Snap. And it comes right back. Ready? Snap. And it comes right back. Now those are some of your hand techniques. Now let's go into the kicking technique. We have front kick, where your knee comes straight up. Front, or even the back knee. So if your opponent is close, you will use your knee to strike. If your opponent is far away, you will extend your leg out and do a front kick. So let's try that in 3 steps. Front leg. Just bring your knee up. That's 1. Kick him back. That's 2. And then down 3. Let's try that one more time. Remember, 3 count. 1, 2, 3. Now let's try that with the back leg. After you kick, come back. Keep your guards up to protect yourself. Back knee up. 1, 2, 3. And one more time. Knee up. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 차려. And 경례. Now, let's apply this in a front attack, tackle, or choke situation. Assuming Mr. Park is coming into attack. When your opponent is far away, you have a little extra time. So yes, you can get into the thinking stance to prepare. Here, if he's coming to attack, I'll probably want to use my front leg. It's the longest weapon I have. So when he's attacking with his hands, whether he's grabbing, choking, tackling, or even punching, I can use my legs to keep him away from me. Even he has weapons. It'll be hard for him to attack me even with a stick or cut me even with a knife. And you can see the advantage that I have. And that's why kick is effective. Now, you'll be standing still with your partner and try this drill. Of course, faster they attack, faster you'll have to defend. So please take this slow motion. So from standing still, again, don't get into a stance, from standing still, whichever leg you kick first would be your front leg. They come in, your guard comes up, and right away, stop your opponent with the front kick. Make sure you have a plenty of distance. Now, here, your opponent can drop the hand, because they just got kicked in the body, they'll probably grab for their body. Or if their guard is still up, as you step into them, make sure you block to clear the path to follow up with front hand, back hand, or we talked about back fist strike, palm heel strike, or even the famous karate chop, knife hand strike to the neck or the throat, follow with the back, palm heel strike. If your opponent is close, elbow strike. If they're very close, you can finish them off with back knee strike. So you can see you have a lot of options. But in basic self-defense, please keep in mind your protection is number one. So you're not trying to hurt your opponent more so than just stop him from bothering you, attacking at you. So you have to decide when is enough. But you can continue on if you wish, and of course, that comes from your part of your training as well as your discipline. So let's go through this drill again using all four, both hands, both legs, limbs. So he comes into attack, I stop him with a front kick. I step in, his arm is in the way, so I'm going to knock it out, palm heel strike, and I'm going to use a punch to the body just to push him away. So this way now I have a room to follow with the kick, and you notice I landed in a ready stance, so I can continue on if I have to. Now alternate this with your partner. That time I started with my left. Next time I'll start with my right. So use both sides. Remember, in self-defense, you can't choose which side. You can't defend until they attack. So they're going to use the element of surprise to their advantage when they attack. Well, you want to make sure use that element of surprise when you counterattack back. So here we go. As they come in, this time, right side, step through, knock it off, and then I'm going to use punch, punch, and of course, this time, back leg front kick, and I continue on. So, let's review those four techniques one more time. Okay, from fighting stance, we have front hand, back hand, front leg, and back leg. Those are your four basic weapons: 2 arms and 2 legs. Let's continue on with our basic self-defense techniques. This time, side kick. You have gone through basic punch, basic front kick, and side kick. Now the reason side kick is a must in a self-defense situation because your opponent will not always be coming from the front. They may come from the side or even from the rear. That's why side kick is a must. Now let's go back and talk about front kick a little bit. Front kick, you point your knee at the target. So if I'm kicking low, I'll point my knee low. If I want to kick high, I point my knee high. If I want to kick slight at an angle, I point my knee at an angle. Well, my knee doesn't go straight to the side, of course, unless you're very flexible, but your knee will never go backward unless you turn your whole body. Of course, if they're coming from the back, you can't see them, so that's not a possible kick. And that's where side kick comes in handy. Now, side kick is a very simple stomp. Just bring your toes, foot, your ankle, curl everything up so only your heel is touching the floor. Just pick up your knee straight up and stomp. One more time. Pick up your knee straight up and stomp with your heel. You just did a side kick. If your opponent is coming from the side, just bring your knee straight up and you will stomp to the side. If your opponent is coming from the back, you pick your knee straight up again and stomp straight to the back. If they're very close to you, you can just pick up your foot and of course stomp right on their top of the foot. Now we will go through these techniques and apply in front and rear chokes. Let's start with the rear choke. In the beginning, we worked on someone coming from the rear with the arm choke. You stepped into the arm and defended with elbow strike. In the same situation, you could have stomped on the top of their foot using that side kick. Let's see that. 차려, 경례. Now once again, Mr. Park is coming from the rear and choking with his arm. Now it doesn't matter whether he's coming from the left or right. I know that he'll be directly behind me. He's not going to be choking from way over to the side. So when I'm being choked, I just pick up one of my legs. I know his leg is back here, so I don't have to worry about where I'm going to be stomping. As long as I pick it up and I feel his leg, I know at the bottom of that leg is going to be his foot. That's how you know. So even though you can't see the back, you can't see his foot, if you just pick up your leg and just feel his leg and just go straight down, you know his foot is going to be there. Incorporating that with a stomp to the right side, side step horse stance, you have the elbow strike, face strike, and groin strike. So adding on to the rear choke, you have a foot stomp. Now let's continue this on with a different type of a rear choke. Let's assume this time your opponent is coming in not with the arm, but with their hand. They could be grabbing, choking, tackling position. So now you can't elbow them, nor can you stomp them. But I know you're already thinking, since you can't stomp straight down, well, you can probably kick straight back. Again, you know he's back there. He's not going to be choking you from off the angle. So even though you don't know exactly where your opponent is, if you just bring your knee straight up, push it straight back, you can get their shin, kneecap, a little higher, even to the groin area. And again, in a self-defense situation, I would not recommend you to kick high. Keep things low. Simpler, better, and of course, it'll help you with balance. Now, this technique, you can practice with your partner by having them come in and grab you. And if the force pushes you forward, where your left foot goes forward, then turn to the right and pick up your right knee and then stomp straight back. Don't worry, you will not be falling flat on your face. When the force comes from the rear, the force will either make your left or your right foot go forward. And by using that force, you turn into your opponent and you will pick up the leg and stomp. Again, the force will make you go forward, turn into that force, and stomp. And there's another way you can defend. Now let's practice this a few times by mixing up arm chokes with the hand chokes. Again, these are all rear chokes. So depending on which side your opponent is coming from, as well as how they are choking, you have to be ready. Before, it was just left or right. Now you have left or right, plus the hand chokes. Now let's see this. I step forward my left, so I turn to the right, and side kick. Right arm, step into it, elbow strike, face strike, and groin strike. Now, as you can see, Mr. Park mixed up his hand chokes with the arm chokes. You can practice drill many times, 10 or maybe even 20 different times with your partner, which will help you to protect against rear chokes. Now, you're ready for a defense against front chokes. 차렷, 경례. Let's go over that ready stance. Keep your body sideways from your opponent. Have the front hands up between you and your opponent with the backhand. From here, you can strike with the front or backhand. We went through many different strikes. Now you have a front kick as well as side kick with your legs. So when your opponent comes in to choke, you can use your side kick just in case you're standing sideways and your opponent comes in. You don't have to turn your body front to defend yourself. So starting out with the body sideways, your opponent comes in to choke, stop your opponent with a side kick. Again, this can go to your opponent's knee. And then following with punches or strikes, and finishing off with either back leg front or side kick. So again, I'm using all 4 limbs. And make sure you practice that with your partner. Now, what if you're too slow? Your opponent actually came up and made a contact. You couldn't kick and you couldn't punch. Now your opponent actually got you. This is an actual grabbing technique. Here, they got your throat, they got you. What should you do? Well, if you think really quick, and if you're smart enough, remember what I told you before? Best defense is a quick offense. And always think about not what you cannot do, but think about what you can do. Well, here, what can I do? Can I punch, strike with my arms? Absolutely, because my arms are free. Can I use my legs? Absolutely, because they're free. Well, the only thing I can't do right now, I can't breathe. In fact, Mr. Park is kind enough to give me a little bit of loose grip so I can talk, but his arms are occupied, which means his face is wide open, his body is wide open, his lower part of the body is wide open. Well, I think you got the message. You can pick and choose. You can use your palm mule strike to the chin, back fist strike to the eyebrows or temple, knife hand strike to the throat or to the floating rib cage, palm mule strike again to the solar plexus. You can do the knee strike to the groin. You can do it to the thigh. You can do it to the abdomen. You can do your front kicks to the knee and shin. You can do your stomp to your opponent's foot. Well, I'm sure you could find many more strikes and target areas. Practice that with your partner. Now let's continue on. What if you don't want to strike your opponent and they choked you? What if the force actually knocked you back and you're slightly off balance? Remember we talked about balance being very important? And one of the stances that we used was horse stance. Now let's visualize the horse stance one more time. About twice as wide as your shoulders, okay? And knees are slightly bent to get your balance and your weight about evenly distributed. I want you to visualize that from standing still, stepping back, getting into the horse stance, or like the ready stance. But because of the force, you may not only be in a ready, but you may be in a wider, which we call it horse stance, because you're going to turn your body sideways. Now, use your opponent's force. So as he comes to grab, let him throw you back. The hand that's same side as the leg that's going back, grab your opponent. You raise the other arm up high, and you turn your body sideways. And you notice his wrist is being locked. His arm is being locked because of the pressure. So he has to let go. And I'm going to come down to trap both of his arms right under my arm. So he can't break away. My body's sideways and I'm protected in a horse stance. So I have pretty good balance. He's slightly off. I can use my elbow strikes. I can use my back fist strike. Or I can even pull back and use that side kick. Now let's try that one more time. He comes in, he chokes. Now what if the force knocks me back with the other foot? Well, I grab with the other hand, raise the opposite end up, turn my body into it. Remember, don't fight against the force and start twisting your body the other way. It doesn't work. You have to go with the flow. So he knocks me back with my right, then I have to turn into my right. Catch my opponent, elbow strike, knife hand, back fist, and once again, that side kick. Now let's see it one more time, front view. He comes in, chokes, and he knocks me back. I grab the wrist tight, come up. Now, if he's got a good grip, and you try to break the grip by using your arm, you're not going to be able to do it. You have to use your shoulders and your body to turn, to apply pressure on that wrist. So you have to turn your body sideways. And then you break. And then you catch. Strike and strike. 차려. 경례. That is the defense against the front choke. Let's continue on with wrist grabs. In wrist grabs, you can use wrist release to get out. Of course, you can use any of the strikes, kicking and punching. Wrist twist, wrist locks, and even arm locks to defend yourself. 차렷, 경례. We'll be starting out with same side grab. Don't cross your arms. Don't grab in a reverse grab. Just nice, simple wrist grab from the same side. You may be wondering, what if they grab you this way, that way? Well, those are advanced. Don't worry about what ifs. What if your opponent grabs you cross arm, reverse grab? Those are advanced techniques. Advanced wrist grabs, advanced wrist locks, and of course, advanced arm locks. Let's start with basics. Here we have same side, simple wrist grab, and you always want to make sure you know where your opponent's thumb is. I want you to imagine that thumb is the door to release, open to release. Let's first start out with making believe that your opponent doesn't have a thumb. So let Mr. Park grab me without using your thumb. You notice there's a big wide open space? Well, that's where I'm going to take my arm out, to that open space. Even he turns his hand slightly sideways. If he doesn't use his thumb, you notice that's where my gate is. So I want you to always keep in mind the thumb is the door. And compare your opponent's thumb with your wrist. Which one do you think will win? I hope your wrist is. If your opponent's thumb is bigger than your wrist, you're in big trouble. Now let's use that concept and let's apply this wrist release. So your opponent comes in to grab. Please don't pull back. Most of the times your opponent is stronger than you are. So you don't want to struggle with them. You want to use their leverage. You want to use their force. First thing you do, you open your hand. And if you do that, you will feel your wrist expanding, which means you're loosening up the grip. Second thing, turn your wrist so this way it's lined up with his thumb. And you notice when I do that, right now there's no space, no space between Mr. Park's thumb and the fingers. But when I open and I turn, you notice I'm creating slight space. I still don't want to pull because he may have a still pretty good grip. Well, opposite of pulling is push. So what do? I push my elbow into him using his hand as a leverage, and I release. And if I'm in a good position, I can follow with back fist strike, or even knife hand strike. Let's try that one more time. He grabs, open, I step into him to get more leverage. Remember, he's not going to come to me, so I have to go to him. You notice I start turning, release. And here again, almost like the horse stance again. Balance is very important. Follow with the back fist strike or knife hand strike. One last time. He grabs. Remember, I want to go against that thumb. Now sometimes if his hand is turned slightly, you can't go sideways because that's where his fingers are. So you may have to go straight up because that's where his thumb is. So don't always think you go sideways. Sometimes you have to go straight up because that's where his thumb is. And from there, I can do a knife hand strike or even back fist strike once again to finish him off. So in wrist release, follow the thumb. Thumb is the door. Now, second stage, wrist twist. He grabs, same side. You're going to turn your palm up, facing towards you as you step in a circular motion. You should be able to turn your palm in or out. Right now, we're going in, as if you're going to read your palm. More you bend your arm, closer your arm is to you, more leverage you have. So keep that arm tight. Using the other hand to support underneath. As you're doing that, put your thumb on back of his hand, by his knuckle, and give it a little push. You're going to reach under and grab the other side, right by his thumb. You use your hand, your thumb to push, and you're going to use both hands to drop your opponent. And as you notice, I'm locking my opponent's wrist, elbow, and his shoulder. So when I apply pressure, his whole body has to give. That is wrist twist. Now let's see that from the other side so you can see a better view of the other angle. Same side grab, I step in, I turn my palm up as if I'm going to read my palm. Remember, read your palm. And on your palm it says, take the other hand, reach underneath. Remember, my thumb is by back of his knuckle. I'm going to take my finger and grab the big part of his hand by his thumb and pull down, use both hands. And when I pull down, you notice, I lock his wrist, his elbow, and his shoulder. And I take the other hand using palm heel pressure to secure. Again, I have two hands. This is wrist twist. One last time. I step in, turn my palm in, facing me. Take the other hand, reach underneath, and catch. Now make sure you don't try to twist your opponent from here, because if you do that, they can spin right out and you'll be in big trouble because they have pretty good balance. Make sure when you come up, catch your opponent and drop your opponent so they're off balance, their wrist, elbow, shoulders are locked, so you got them in control. And that is wrist twist. Let's continue on with wrist locks and arm locks. Again, same side grab. In wrist twist, we turned our palm in, facing you. But in wrist lock, you turn your palm out, facing them. Make sure you do not overturn your opponent. If you overturn your opponent can continue to spin and come around in a spinning back fist or even an elbow strike. So preventing from that, you just stop them with your fingers pointing straight up or their pinky on the top. Then their shoulder will be locked so they can't spin, and even they try, their arm is going to be locked. So make sure you do not overturn your opponent. Now you notice I've secured him with my other hand. Don't forget, we always use both hands. It's one hand against two, one arm against two. So you will always win. So once again, palm facing out, turn your palm out, keep your elbow down, fingers up, his pinky up. Make sure you get that thumb out. Don't let that get thumb caught by his wrist. Clear everything. Same time, you'll be able to see your opponent's hand right in front of you. Secure that with the other hand. Sandwich his hand between your hand and your wrist so he can't get away. And then you reach over with your hand that turned out right on top of his wrist. And you lock it, meaning you just hold on to it tight. As you apply the pressure to his wrist, you roll his hand over to complete the wrist lock. Now, one more time. You turn your palm out, keeping your elbow down. Step into them because they're not going to come to you. You notice my hand went right toward his hand. So I'm using both hands. I hold on to it. The hand that rotated outside goes over his wrist. As it goes over, you apply the pressure straight down, and the other hand rolls into the wrist lock. Now let's see that with other side. Again, same side grab. I can grab same time as I twist. Or as I twist, I can grab. And you notice I've stepped in. My hand palm goes out, facing my opponent. All my hands are up, including my thumb. I catch my opponent's hand, sandwich it between my wrist and my hand, so he can't get away. His wrists are bent, which creates the wrist lock. My hand goes over, pressure goes down, and I rotate his hand to complete the wrist lock. Now let's see that one last time from the other side. Remember, outside, palm in is for the wrist twist, palm out is for the wrist lock. Slide in, keeping your leverage tight. Your hand goes over his wrist, same time the hand twists, completes the wrist lock. Make sure the wrist is bent. If the wrist is loose, then you will not be able to do the wrist lock correctly. So from this position, if your opponent's wrist is not bent, you notice there is no pressure. If his wrist is bent and locked, then when you turn, there is a pressure. And that's why wrist lock is effective. Now continuing on with the wrist lock, in a case where your opponent is a little bit quicker than you are, or even stronger than you are, bigger than you are, they may actually be able to resist. So when you step in and try to bend your opponent's arm, they have the resistance. So your wrist lock becomes a little more difficult. But because his arm is straight, you can continue on and do the arm lock. Now you notice in this position where his thumb is. On the other side, remember we talked about that in wrist release. Well, I can take my hand out to that side, and you notice I got a grasp of his hand, my elbow is out. I continue to support his wrist or hold on to his wrist. I step into him and I apply pressure on his elbow joint, and same time I bend his wrist toward him, applying the wrist lock and arm lock, same time. Now let's try that one more time, same side. Again, if the arm bends, I can do the wrist lock, but arm is tight. And when you practice this, you will feel the resistance. Right away, step into it one more time. Get that arm released. Right away, apply the pressure on his elbow joint, as well as apply the pressure on his wrist. to finish off the arm lock. Now let's try from the other side. Palm out, rotate out, slide in, but his arm is tight. There's a resistance. Well, I have to step in one more time and get my elbow out. You notice where the thumb is. Up, I apply the pressure on his elbow joint, and I apply the pressure on his wrist. So as I'm applying the pressure, the arm lock is completed. Let's go back to the original position for the one last time. Arm lock. Goes outside. Right away, I can get my elbow out if I wish to do the arm lock. So I don't even have to stop at a midpoint to check and see if his arm is bent or trying to apply the wrist lock. I just pull him out, get my arm out right away, and then apply the pressure to complete the arm lock. Now, some of the drills that we do for the wrist locks or wrist twist or arm locks are very simple. Just stand still, put your right hand in the front, and then step forward with your right and turn your palm in. Turn your palm out. Make a half circle, okay, keeping your elbow down. Ready? Let's try that. Palm in, palm out. Don't move that elbow. Keep that elbow as a leverage. Palm in, palm out. I also say, remember from the Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. That might give you a little fun to work with. Palm in, palm out. And you can do that also with the other side. Ready? Palm in, palm out. Palm in for the wrist twist. Palm out for the wrist lock. Let's try that with a partner. He grabs me, palm in, palm out. Palm in, palm out. You can even do that on to yourself. Put your one hand in the front, turn your palm in, take the other hand, put your thumb by back of your knuckle, give it a little push, reach under and grab your palm and twist and drop your wrist. And you notice you're creating that lock, and you should be able to feel the pressure by applying that wrist twist. Let's try that with the other side. Turn your palm in. Take the other hand. Reach underneath as if you're supporting the hand. But put the thumb by your back knuckle, fingers by your palm. Drop, and wrist twist is applied. And remember, wrist lock, palm out. So practice these techniques, which will help you with wrist twist, wrist locks, and of course, the arm locks. 차렷, 경례. 차렷, 경례. Thank you again, my assistant, Mr. Youngun Park. You have just completed Part 1, Perfect Basic Self-Defense of Volume 5, Perfect Self-Defense series of my instructional video library. Please join me in Part 2, where I take you through one-step self-defense 1 through 12, also known as 일보 대련. I will see you in Part 2.